Just a bit of background. I did about 5 internships during my undergrad. So I initially started off with a startup called Li2 Innovations. And so a bit of background for you, I graduated in mechanical engineering from BMS IT in Bangalore. And the first internship that I landed was in my first year. Wherein I worked with this organization called Li2 Innovations on basics of robotics. So they're actually a sort of an education technology sort of startup, and so they let me teach in their workshops and stuff. So I attended a few of their workshops as just a person who helps with their logistics and technical stuff. And then later on, as I started learning how they conduct workshops and how they teach, I started to learn more and more about robotics from them, and then also started to transfer this knowledge as a part of their workshop. So I was a workshop trainer at Li2 Innovations, and it sort of started to kindle a bond with the people who are working there. And I throughout my engineering, I was in constant collaboration with them. My team and I, we used to do a lot of projects for them. They're more like a consulting company. They got a lot of new projects which are related to AI and robotics and 3D printing. And so in that sense, I got a lot of exposure there, which then led me to applying for a research internship at IISc. So majority of the stuff that I'll be talking about today is applicable to getting an internship at IISc. And then during my final year, I also got an internship offer from ETH Zurich. And then currently I'm working at Dubai Future Labs, which is a applied research laboratory here in Dubai. I initially started out as a research intern. I continue to work here as a part of their autonomy and navigation stack setup here. So just a bit of background for you. What I think are useful for you to get an internship at at a research institution is what this slide talks about. Firstly, as Sai mentioned, you have to apply and prepare yourself early. So usually internships, as Sai rightly mentioned, are happening at a particular time of the year when they start planning out what to do. And if you wait till the last minute, then it's not going to happen, because these internships are super competitive. People are going to be applying from all over the world. So always apply, prepare early, and apply. And what do I mean by prepare is you do your research about the organization that you're applying to, the lab that you're applying to, and the principal investigator of that lab. And it's also super important, and I felt that this really helped me get my internships, and that is to contact current employees or current research assistants or current interns at that lab. Understand what sort of work they're doing, understand the nature of how the professor deals with deals with a problem statement, how they assist you or how they guide you, and what sort of expectations they have. This really helps you in getting a sense of whether it's going to be a meaningful investment of your time to spend your time at that lab, and also it gives you an idea of the kind of expectations that these people have of you. So what sort of skill sets you're supposed to know beforehand, what sort of guidance they give you. Is it more of a independent research, or is it more collaborative, where on a daily basis you would be talking and working with the professor and doing this? So this insight will help you decide if it's really worth in your own interest to apply to this lab or not. And then some institutions require a research proposal. For instance, the internship that I did at IISc, it required for me to produce a research proposal. So how do you go about doing a research proposal is first understanding, the publications at which this professor has, published papers at. So this is specific to academia. So if you're working with a professor and, and he requires you to submit a research proposal for further consideration as an intern, then look at areas of interest where he's an expert at, and look at the papers that he's published, read the sort of stuff that he's been doing over time, and understand how, in your experience, can you contribute to it. So you don't have to say, you don't have to, propose something groundbreaking. You're not expected to say something that is completely, completely original and creative. But maybe incremental improvements are also just as good. And if you're able to understand the problem well enough and say that, these are the limitations and maybe we can work towards finding a solution to this limitation, that's also perfectly acceptable. So produce a research proposal based on the work that he's done, work that the current lab is working on, and maybe the geography also matters. So it depends. For example, Zurich, when I was applying to ETH Zurich, one of the things that I had to take into consideration before producing a research proposal was also what sort of external associations the lab has, and what sort of problems that those external associations are trying to solve. And so I picked a research proposal which was also relevant to those. So this only comes with a lot of research. So this may not be applicable to every institution you apply to, but as an example, it could be, as you do more and more research, then you get a broad understanding of the nature of the problems that the lab is trying to solve and the area of research that they're interested in. And also, when you present yourself, either through an email or during by when you submit your resume, is super important for you to give credibility to the work that you've already done. And I always, suggest anyone who asks me for the best way to get an internship is to document everything you do. So whether you did something which was groundbreaking or whether you did something that was trivial, what documentation does is give somebody who's reading your work an insight onto how you think. So this is something which is something that people value a lot, because they want to know how you approach a problem, how you decompose a problem, and how do you start solving it one by one. So if you're able to give them a window of opportunity into seeing how exactly you approach a problem, how you break it down, what do you do when you deal with failures, when you encounter failures, that's a great way to sell yourself, especially when you when a person does not know you and they have to take a call based on the limited information that you give them. So this is super important. And I don't say just document all of the things that you did successfully. I say also do document all of your failures and how you exactly went about tackling them. So and then credibility also helps when you are able to get some sort of recommendation letters from your past employers or from your professors. So if you're able to get that for your internship, also it's a great addition to your profile. So the most important thing that I feel is writing a compelling cover letter or an email. So I can give you a brief insight of how I usually, what the process is that I follow in the coming slide. So apart from that, having a updated LinkedIn profile is super important, because a lot of the people that you approach will be through LinkedIn. I've had more success reaching out to a lot of people through LinkedIn and just explaining what I do and how I'm interested in their work. And they always come back and check your profile. So making sure that you have a refined LinkedIn profile, which is updated, always helps. There's a great tool that you can use to track your emails. When you send an email to somebody, maybe they're reading it and maybe they forgot to get back to you. So it always helps to get that data of when they read your emails and if you're getting any attention from the emails that you're sending. And you can accordingly optimize emails that get more and more attention. So there's a great tool called Mail Tracker. If you haven't downloaded it already, please, you can Google it and it's a plugin that you can use. And each time you send an email, you get a notification when they read it, and you can see how many times they read it and if they forward it to somebody. So this is how you know if a certain certain format you're using to sell yourself in an email is working or not. And this is the sort of data that you need to do a lot of optimization to the process. And when you document your work through a personal portfolio like a website or something, make sure that you have some sort of analytics tools to track where you're getting traffic from, because this is what gives you, suppose you're applying to internships in multiple countries and you're getting traffic from a certain country, then you can say you have a higher chance of getting an internship at that particular country because you're getting more traffic from there. And so you can focus all your efforts on selling yourself more to the people from that place versus the other. So all of these small data points really help in getting your optimizing the process that you follow to getting an internship. Moving on to the way that I usually write my email. So this is an example of an email that I wrote to the professor at ETH Zurich. I usually start with a small brief introduction of who I am. And all of my emails include hyperlinks, meaning if I talk about something, there's always a video or a blog that usually reinforces the work that I've done. So if suppose they read something that instantly catches their attention, there's always a clickable link right next to it where they can go and read more. So this is how you kind of get an edge over your competitors, because professors by nature and humans by nature are super lazy, right? They don't want to go and Google up and open your resume and search for it. So if you're able to provide a super easy clickable link right next to it that can kind of get them, give them more information about you, then that works in your favor. Give your link your GPA. For in this case I had to link my GPA because I was applying to ETH and they're super particular about the GPA that you have. You don't have to have an outrageous GPA, but usually something above 8 out of 10 always helps. If you don't meet those criteria, then I wouldn't suggest you mention it right away. But if you do meet that criteria, include it, because they're asking for it, and they usually ask for it. And I'll tell you exactly how I found this internship offer as well later on. So the way I usually structure my emails are, there's a brief introduction, the purpose of writing that email, and then I usually split my email into two parts: a background of exactly how I'm suitable for this position, and a research proposal based on what the professor has done. So usually the way I do it is I read the previous work that they've done and look where there is a maximum coherence from the work they've done and the work I've done. So even if it's not exactly 100% match of what I've done, what they've done, even if there's some sort of overlap in interested technology, then I usually refer to that and give my thoughts on that. So you can, if you don't know what to propose, you can always tell them that the particular aspect of their research really piqued your attention and curiosity, and you would like to explore that further. That's also perfectly acceptable. So yeah, this is the basic structure that I usually follow for writing emails: a brief introduction, give them a background, and give them a research proposal, and also to talk a bit about your soft skills towards the end, and tell them that you're also certain things that they look for is a person who's willing to work through difficult problems, who doesn't really give up quickly if things get hard, and who can be independent, because people during your internships, don't expect people or professors to hold your hands and guide you. You're supposed to do that yourself. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable during the internship. You're supposed to feel like you don't know anything, and you're supposed to work your way out of it. So if you're saying, so if you can reiterate to them that these are situations that will come to you and you're okay with it, then this definitely saves them a lot of time, because they know that the expectations are set. So yeah, this is just a bit about how I usually write my emails. And some things that I felt was important during an internship, once you've got it, is the attitude that you need to have. So firstly, you're there to learn. So mostly if internships are not paid, the only thing that you're getting out of it is the knowledge, and you need to maximize the amount of knowledge you get. And that is the only way you can do that, is by asking questions. But be careful with the number of questions you ask. It really depends on the person that you're dealing with. It's good to ask a lot of questions, but make sure they're not trivial. And if your answer can be found by, say, a quick Google search, then maybe it's better to do the Google search and ask them questions which are relevant to your field of research, which will guide the direction of your work. So questions that are good and insightful. And initially, you might not be asking very good questions. That's fine, but I wouldn't suggest that you hold back and are completely clueless on what needs to be done. So it's fine if you're uncomfortable. It's fine if you feel clueless at the time when you start the internship. But it's important to ask questions and tell them that exactly this is where you're going wrong and this is where you need guidance. So it's also good for asking for guidance, but it shouldn't be that you expect them to spoon feed you every step of the way. They might give you a broad direction, and you're expected to sort of build from there on. And they might give you the resources, but the knowledge acquiring has to be done on your own. And this is true for every other situation, not just in internships, but when you start working as a professional, this is also what you're expected to do. And then being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So you're expected, when you're thrown into the deep in an internship and you don't really know the nature of the problem you're working with, you will feel uncomfortable. But that's a good thing sometimes, because that's where you actually learn. That's where you push your mental boundaries, and by overcoming those hurdles, that's where you feel that you're growing. So don't expect your internship to be an easy ride. And if it is being an easy ride, then it means you're not learning enough. So always push yourself so that you always feel uncomfortable, and be okay with being uncomfortable. And then when you usually when in an internship, and when your supervisor gives you a problem, it's probably a little vague. You don't know how to exactly approach it. And so this is an important skill to have, and that is to decompose problems. So when they've given you a broad problem, try to break it down into smaller manageable chunks, and come up with a plan to solve each small manageable chunk and build your way up. And it's also important to track your time. The difference between a regular internship and say a full-time position is that your time is limited, and you need to be practical about what it is that you can achieve. So don't take too much onto your plate, but at the same time, what you take, you make sure that you keep up to the quality, and you track the time that you spend. So if you're feeling that you spend too much time on something and you're not making much progress, then go to your supervisor and ask for help. And yeah, as I said before, don't expect to be spoon-fed. And it's super important that you also maintain a really good relationship with your supervisor and also the people you're working with, because these are the guys who are going to guide you along the way. And if they say something which may not always be nice in terms of them giving criticism, take it in a positive way. Don't get offended by what they say, and try to improve yourself. You're there to learn, and you're there to make sure that you get the most out of it in terms of knowledge. So take criticisms constructively, and always maintain a good relationship with all of your supervisor as well as the colleagues working with you. Read a lot of papers. Make sure that you know what you're doing in terms of what the state of the art in the problem that you're working on is. Always be updated with research papers. They're always they're freely available these days, and so you can go on Google Scholar and pick up a few articles and start reading them. You don't have to understand everything, but at least having a broad sense of where the state of the art is and what people are doing across the world really helps. And over time, you will start getting familiarized with what you're doing. And this is super important, which is which unfortunately a lot of people do at internships, and it really puts a bad image on you when you do that, and that is to plagiarize. So if you don't know something and you are under a time crunch, people tend to go take the shortcut and use some other person's work or some other person's code just to finish their work or finish their obligations. It's really better that you admit that you don't know something than to plagiarize somebody's work and say that you did something, because that not only puts a bad impression on you, but it also it rules out the chances of anyone coming after you from the same institution. They usually blacklist people from an institution who they've found doing some sort of malpractice like plagiarism. So I never plagiarize, and make sure that you're very transparent with the people you're working with. Make sure that they know where your work is coming from. If something is original, tell them it's original. If you borrowed something, make sure that you cite it. If you're using a GitHub repository, fork the GitHub repository and give them the credibility for the work. So never plagiarize. Document your work, because somebody who comes after you during your internship needs to carry on with the work that you've done. It's not likely that you will produce a high quality work when you leave. So when a person comes after you, they need to be able to take over from what you did. So always document your work, and so that you can facilitate skill transfer easily. Ask for honest feedback from your supervisor all the time, and always focus on doing good quality work rather than focusing on too many things and not getting any of that done. So always quality over quantity helps. And when you leave a good impression behind, when you leave that organization, there's always chances that you're called back after your commitment is done for a full-time position. So these are the things that I would like to share with you about an attitude that you need to have during your internship. Some resources that I would like to share as well for getting internship notifications. There's a great website called SIROP, which stands for Students Interested in Research Opportunities. And this is where I found my internship opportunity for ETH and EPFL. So a lot of EPFL, ETH and spin-offs of ETH and EPFL post their internship opportunities at SIROP. And usually these are of three types. They either ask for a master's semester project, they ask for internships, or they ask for a master's thesis. So you can find projects based on the difficulty. They categorize it onto three levels. There in each problem, they give you a description of what you're supposed to do, the time period at which you're supposed to be present in the lab, and if it's a sponsored project, and would you be getting paid for doing it or not, and what the expectations are in terms of skill sets that you need to have prior to the thing, and also the contact person of the of the person posting this particular project. So you can directly reach out to them through SIROP, or you can email them through their official email ID. And I did this, I applied both through SIROP and by emailing, and emailing seemed to have a lot more traction than through SIROP. But these are great places to find out what the current interests of the lab are. And here is also where I found spin-offs that the ETH robotics lab, the robotic systems lab, was working on. And so this allowed me to frame a research proposal based on both the listing that I found on Sirop as well as the work that other people were doing. And of late, people, the principal investigator of a lab or an organization will always have, it's common to find lab openings and stuff like that on their Twitter handles. RBCCPS, for example, has a quite active Twitter handle, and so many other labs, especially I think a few labs in Canada and Montreal, in Quebec as well. These guys have, I've seen a lot of job openings being posted on their Twitter handles, a lot of internship openings posted there. So keep updated with their Twitter handles, follow their LinkedIn pages for their labs. Some labs have their own newsletters that come out every week where they talk about the work that they do. So you can subscribe to those and keep updated with the work they're doing. And if you find an opportunity, you can always, be one of the early people to apply. And also many labs also have a lot of external outreach events. So lab events and seminars where they bring in guest lecturers, and you get to sort of have a one-on-one interaction with the professors who are associated with that lab. So for example, RBCCPS has an annual event where they bring in a lot of experts in robotics from across the world, and they give access to students and researchers. So attending such events also is a great way to network and find connections and opportunities for internships. So this is finding internships, especially at these organizations, is not really straightforward. They don't post their opportunities as someone asked. It's not always very transparent, but exposing yourself more and more to these fields is probably the only way to get a better insight of what opportunities are available and how you can apply. Then LinkedIn is also a great place. As I said earlier, reach out to current employees of the organization, understand the kind of work they're doing, and from time to time, either the employees themselves might share a particular opening that that may not be available on a public domain. So these are the places where you need to be actively involved in to understand where the opportunities are. And finally, direct outreach through email or in person. So you look up different labs if you're doing it within India or abroad, it's the same process. Look up various labs that are doing research in your area of interest or where you've had some prior experience. See what they're doing, understand what the professors are working on. And if you find something interesting, always you can directly email them and see if they're interested in your proposal or not. So yeah, it can be a hard process. You might need to send multiple emails, but collect data in the sense that make sure that when you craft a particular email, if it's getting attention or not through mail trackers. Build a portfolio and set up a tracker there as well to see if you're getting traffic on people from various countries. So these are certain small things that I think helped me, and I hope that this was also something that you can take something out of. So if you have any questions, you can ask me, and we can open up questions as well to the other two speakers today. So any other questions, you can feel free to put it on the chat. Was the internship for ETH on-site or virtual? So unfortunately, after getting the ETH internship, I wasn't able to start the internship because they expected me to be there on-site, and that was also when COVID had started, and there was a lot of confusion and chaos. So I mean, it was a personal decision to not go for the internship because of all the chaos. So yeah, I couldn't take that internship up, but this was the process that I had to follow to get it. Where am I working right now? So I'm working at Dubai Future Labs currently. So I continue to work here until I start my master's. So I'm an incoming master's student at CMU, and I'll be starting my master's in robotics this fall. So until I start there, I would be working here. What do you think about remote internships now? This is a good question because it really depends on the institution. I've had an experience where a second part of one of my IISc internships was remote, and honestly, when it was like the beginning of COVID, when everybody had to suddenly shift to the whole remote working thing, and honestly, the productivity was greatly affected, both because certain resources you need to have for robotics, especially you need to have hardware. And if you're working in an academic field where you need certain high tech hardware for you to really do experimental validation, then in that sense, I don't think remote internships add much value. I would rather you do have like physical access to robots where you can validate what you're doing. So it really depends on the nature of the field that you're working in. If you're working in computer vision, for example, and all you need is a data set for validating what you're done, and you don't need physical hardware, then in such cases, maybe there's no real difference between working from home versus working at a lab. Working at a lab always has its own perks in the sense that you get to network with the people there, you get to discuss more things, with people currently who are involved in the lab. So and you need to be focused as well, right? Because when you're doing an internship and you're at home, you don't really get the same sort of intensity to work as you might from a lab. So it depends from person to person as well as the field that you're working on. How do you approach internships in a startup? So I think for me, see, Dubai Future Labs, for example, is another startup here in Dubai. They're a government entity and sort of a spin-off startup as well. So how did I approach that? I directly reached out to the CTO. Usually in startups, you can directly reach out to the people who are at the top management level, and they are ready to respond to you. I think Sai and Vishwas, feel free to add to this as well. I don't know did you guys approach the HR department, or did you guys directly approach somebody from the management, from the technical or the manager or top management?
Yeah, so like when I was in my second year, Invent also just kind of started off, so I wrote straight to Balaji, and I connected there, and then further down the line, my gap year also, I worked with them for 1 year. So ideally, I think it'll be nice if you can reach out to current people who are in the managerial roles, like software managers or development managers. Reach out to them. They're pretty much the ones who take the decision. Like at Inventor, there is no specific HR of that sort because there's no some soft corner for that. But yeah, I would say reach out to people like managers in there. If you just Google, if you just search on LinkedIn, you'll find development manager and chief architect and people like that. So reach out to them. I think they'll be in a better position to determine if they want to have you or not, and they know they're the decision makers. So like how Vishwas said, they'll also be able to tell if there's an opening or not.
Yeah, so when I applied to Invento, I basically wrote a mail to them it was a generic mail ID, like contact at inventorobotics.com, and but it was actually the CEO Balaji who replied back to the mail and asking me about what I was interested in to work on and whether there was opening and all that. So like Kaushik said, even the top best people are willing to talk with you and see whether you can come in and work with since it's a startup. So it's good to approach people who are at the manager position or like the CEO, CTO, in my opinion.
Okay, so as we read these questions, Vishwas and Sai, if you have anything to add, please feel free to add on as well. So what's the level of knowledge expected from applicants? Should they have published papers previously, or would good projects and portfolio suffice? Honestly, it's fine. I think if you're applying for an internship, the expectation is not to have, I don't think they expect you to have publications in the first place. It's always a bonus to have it, but I mean, I don't think that they expect publications to be there, as long as you can demonstrate sufficient level of comfort with whatever topic you're proposing, and if you're able to show them good, well documented projects, I think that should suffice. What specialization or major have you opted for at CMU? I'll be doing my master's in robotic systems development, MRSD. So what do you think? Doing many internships, personal projects, or yeah. So yeah, doing a lot of personal projects definitely help. You don't have to wait for an opportunity through an internship to embark on any sort of personal interest that you have. You can always take up if you're working on if you're aiming for a particular research institution, you can look at what their area of research is and maybe take a more primitive version of the problem they're working on, and work on that in your spare time with the resources that you have available. And you can tell them obviously that I worked on a smaller subset of this problem that you're trying to solve, and so basically I've gained the experience for me to contribute further onto this. So that would be a good approach.
Oh, I wanted to add on something to a previous question. Somebody asked Kaushik if he did a remote or did it do it in Zurich or somewhere else. But just in case, I had my intern. I had to go to Atlanta. So when I was, just be aware that in this visa process can take anywhere between 2 to 3 months. So like how Kaushik reinforced the point that you need to start applying early. So if you get a decision in Jan or Feb, you can actually make it to the place. So just keep that in mind in case you guys are planning something of that sort.
Yeah. So for a bit of history onto the whole ETH process that I had to follow, it's also important that your university is okay with you going abroad, because not all universities in India are okay with this, and unfortunately I kind of had to struggle with that as well. So in my own university, they had time restrictions as well on when I need to be back on campus and things like that. And you always have to be transparent with your university as well as the people who are giving you the internship, especially if this is an internship that you're doing outside your home country, because getting an internship and then finally getting into a hassle of missing your attendance when you come back or things like that, all of these small things you need to sort out before you go into your internship, especially if it's something where you need to go apply abroad. So make sure that that the time period that you commit with these universities, your college at home is also okay with it, because if you say I'm going to be available for 3 months and then your university at home says no, you have to be back for classes in 1 more month, then it creates a bad impression from your part, because you have to suspend your internship early and leave and things like that. So make sure you don't get into that sort of a hassle. Be very clear when you apply to a university abroad. What your time commitments are, your constraints are, what the expectation is from your own university at home and the expectations from the university abroad. So even before you apply, you need to make sure that you have all of this information with you before you apply, because during the interview when they ask you these questions and if you're uncertain, then that always indecisiveness creates a bad impression on you. So what should I do if I don't find an internship for summer projects or courses? I would say you can start with courses, understand basic like intuition, get an intuition of what the course is about. But then honestly, courses aren't really useful unless you apply that knowledge somewhere. And you can show that you're not just a passive consumer of courses, but you're also an active applicant of all the information and knowledge. So start with a course, but don't get too bogged down by getting certificates under your belt, because honestly, no one cares about all those certificates. If you're able to put a good project together based on what you learned, and if you're able to translate what you learned into other problems, that's what people care about. So yeah, so that it would be a combination of both. Learn as you do and do as you learn. So that would be the best approach to it. What are they looking? Okay, when applying for internship, some companies ask for a cover letter. What are the things to be highlighted and what shouldn't be written there? Okay, so firstly, it depends on whether you're applying to an academic institution or to industry. So if you're applying to academia, a few things that you need to be aware of is, if they're looking for certain, familiarity with for me personally, they usually ask you for some sort of a research proposal on how you can contribute to the existing work. So make sure that you talk about make sure that you've done your research on what the current work is at the lab, and how you can contribute based on your based on your experiences that you've had so far. Talk about your past experiences and things that you've learned from previous projects and the failures that you've encountered there. May always ensure that you're able to bring out some sort of a personal connection to the problems that you work on. So how is it important to you, and why do you think you, out of all other applicants, are going to stand out in taking that position? So always find something that you can highlight in your application that makes you a standout applicant. This varies from position to position. It really, it's your creativity in understanding where your strengths are, what the requirements of the organization are, and what you can highlight as your strength that will make you stand apart. And this usually comes with a lot of refinement. So when you finish writing a cover letter, send it to somebody, ask them to read it, and get a lot of feedback, because the first version of whatever you write is never going to be perfect. So make sure that you always reiterate and ensure that you're getting feedback. And don't write some generic stuff about why you think but this opportunity will help you. As I mentioned, they're also looking for you to contribute back to their labs. It's not just a thing that they're doing out of social good. So you need to make sure that you are able to guide, convince them that you are also equally good to contribute back to their work. Yeah, Vishwas and Sai, don't hesitate to add on to anything I'm saying. I don't want this to be only about.
Yeah, no, I think most of them, what you said, are bang on. I think one other thing is you need to have technical meat in your cover letter. I mean, it doesn't have to be filled, but it has to show some assurance that you are technically skilled for that role. So I have a tendency to make it a little aligned to technical side. Like I wouldn't put much of my emotional aspects to it. Maybe you can cover that in some other area, but yeah, I would recommend having some good technical facts about you on the cover letter, if that helps the position.
Cool. Do startups provide internships if applicant has more of simulation experience and less or no hardware projects? That's a difficult question. It really depends on what you're applying for also. So suppose you're applying for a position that does not require you to actively be involved in the hardware, not really. But if you're applying to a position where it's an interdisciplinary collaboration, where you have to be a systems integration person, where you both develop algorithms and apply it, then hardware experience helps. But having said that, having simulation experience is better than having no experience. So if this is the only way you can get experience, then it's completely fine. And you don't have to have this super expensive hardware to show that you've got hardware experience. Even hobbyist level hardware is sufficient for you to tell them that you've got some experience. So that shouldn't be too much of an issue.
Yeah, Kaushik, I'll just chip in onto that question, because when I interned at Invento in my second year, nothing. I was a core CS guy, and all I possibly knew was Django and a few Android and development stuff. But eventually down the line, once I went there, I picked up ROS quite quick, because I spent some good time there, and ROS was pretty much primitive back then within the startup. So I picked up ROS, and I got hardware hands-on, and at this point I can do both of them. So I think the learning curve it's going to be steep based on how you start off. Like if you have simulation experience, maybe the learning curve will not be steep, but I strongly believe you need to have while you start working in, like how Kaushik said, learn and do and learn. That process will come up, and you will get both these experiences. So start off with something which you can make yourself valuable in the startup, and then you can pick up stuff. If I don't think that's like a show blocker. Like it's not that you don't have experience, you won't get it, but you might be able to do it, but you have to pick it up.
Okay, so how strong do I need to be in concepts before applying for an internship? You just need to, it's not like people, at least in my experience, I wasn't completely asked questions, theoretical questions. They usually ask me questions about projects that I had already done. And so if you're able to have a strong background or understanding of what you've done, and if you're able to show that you actually understand what you have done as projects in the past, that should be sufficient, because they aren't expecting you to have a lot of, because if you're still in your undergrad and you're applying, then they don't expect you to have super deep understanding. I mean, it's always good to, suppose you're applying in, say, navigation or perception, understanding the basics of what this is, it's better than being completely clueless. Don't be super clueless when you're applying to a position. Make sure that you've done your homework on what you're applying to and what you're expected to do. But they won't ask you math formulae or any super theoretical questions. They'll only ask you questions. At least in my experience, it was only questions about what I had done, and what sort of techniques I had used to solve this problem, what sort of problems I had faced, and the generic questions wherein I had to, if you know what you've been working on and what you've put in your resume, then. Vishwas and Sai, how was your experience? I think Vishwas, they asked you a bunch of technical questions in Yentra's interview. So could you talk about that? What sort of questions they asked you?
Both the time, when I interned at Yentra and Invento, it was more about being able to explain a topic in layman terms. It's not about being too technical and explaining about the theory or different equations or things like that. It's more about when they ask a question, are you able to explain it in simple words as much as possible? So that's what they're looking for. So that kind of shows that you understand the topic to a certain extent, and you can improve on even if you don't know the entire topic in depth. So being able to explain the topic in within a minute or so is what they looked for whenever I went to the interviews. Sorry.
Yeah, I think there's nothing to add on. He's bang on.
Okay. So what advice can you give to a first year student who wants to do research internships in the future? I would say keep yourself updated with the various labs that are at your field of interest. Keep yourself read papers and sort of keep yourself updated with the work they're doing, and try to explore your own interests, and understand where your skills and your interests fit, and which lab would give you that sort of exposure and experience. Understanding your own interest can be the most daunting process initially, because if you don't know what you want to do and what you're good at, then there's no point approaching people for internships, because it's about that mental clarity that you need to have first. So once you are able to get that clarity, then everything else becomes a lot easier, because then you're able to, your cover letters become easy because you're already intrinsically motivated to write stuff. So it really depends on your own clarity. So I would say start exploring. Take your time to keep yourself updated with a wide range of problems that people are working on where you think your interest would fit. So yeah, and since you're already immersed yourself into people, immersed yourself into a community of people who've done this in the past, and you kind of got a flavor of what to expect. So keep interacting with other people as well, understand what other people are doing, and see where. So I would say your primary objective should be to narrow your interest down, and narrow also a place where you think your interest would be best. Where can we get to read these research papers? Go to Google Scholar and type a few keywords on your area of interest, and you will have like thousands of scholarly articles that you can download. Most of these are available online for free. And even if it's like some IEEE paper or something, there are a bunch of tools online where you can copy paste the link and you get a free version of the software. Or if you're near your own research institution or your university or college should have like a IEEE subscription. So if you're able to get access to that, then you can also read these papers through these. We'll all be connected through the Discord server. So in case after during your internship process, if you have anything that you need some clarification on, feel free to use the server to post your questions. Yeah, so Sai and Vishwas, do you guys have any other final closing remarks before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think good luck to all of you guys who are planning to apply for internships abroad, India, or your masters or any other applications. So yeah, all the best for you.